Okay, so now we're going to be able to add this information to our OLED screen, or like a little tiny TV. So there's all sorts of different types of these. They're all the same, they just got slightly different designs. There's one that has a little connector on the back, and then there's another one that has it perpendicular to the back. So it doesn't matter, they're all the same. It just depends on which one we ordered at what time and when they begin to show up and which one gets included in the kit. So I'm just going to use this one. It's newer, and I'm going to take the little protective sheet off of it. Just remember that the front is a little fragile, so you don't want kids like pushing on it very hard and things like that, because it will crack. But they're pretty durable. And it also gets plugged into the I2C port. Okay. And again, if you ever forget, it will usually tell that it's an OLED display. It tells you what size it is. And on the back, bottom right, it kind of gives you the area that says I'm an I2C. If you can see it, it'll be right above, usually someplace written on the back, but there's my I2C written on the back. The sensor will always say what port it gets plugged into. Okay, and so now I'm going to plug this in, and this is going to get plugged right into my I2C. And it does not matter which one it gets plugged into, because they're all the same. They're all an I2C. Okay. And now my next step is to get information onto that screen. Just like our AHT, we're going to need to add an extension. This one, there's a bunch of them that you can add. This is an OLED, so if you actually type OLED, you'll see a whole bunch of these that pops up. So you have to make sure that you pick the right one that would work for it. And again, the name of the sensor is written on it, and so when you flip it over, you will actually see its number. And this one is a 1315, and so any of these 1300s would work. But the one that we like using is one called Tinker Kit, because it always works. We've had no problems with that. And there it is. If I type the word Tinker, I get Tinker Academy Tinker Kit. I'm going to click that. And now I've got two new blocks. I've got the Tinker Academy, which is stuff we're not going to use, but we are going to use the OLED block. So I'm going to click on that, and I get a whole bunch of new blocks. The first thing we've got to do is we have to initialize it. Basically tell the microbit that it's going to have an OLED attached. The default width and height is perfect, and that's why we also like this one. We don't have to mess around with anything. It just works. Okay. So if you don't do that, your code's going to give you errors, because you're going to tell it commands that it doesn't know what the commands are to do or what to control. Okay. Now, let's take our show data function here. I'm going to take all of this stuff out, because these guys are showing it on my microbit, which is a little slow and painful. But I'm now going to use my new OLED block, but it's basically the same thing. Over here I've got show string and show number. Okay, I can put both of those in, and basically look, they're exactly the same as what I did before, and they act exactly the same. So that's one approach. The approach that I actually like a little better is I like it without these new lines, because I can get more thing on a screen. So I'm going to do show without new line, and then I'm going to say my string is air temp equals. The reason why I like without new line is it'll all show up in one single line on the screen. It'll say air temp equals X when I do the next thing, where it says show without new line number, and I'm going to put in my variable air temp. Perfect. Okay, and I want to do exactly the same thing with my humidity. So I'm just going to copy and duplicate this. And instead of air temp here, I'm going to say humidity. And then I'm going to say show without new line, duplicate that for my number. And notice I've got a drop down here. This is going to show me all my variables. So that's going to save me some time instead of moving my mouse and dragging and dropping. I'm going to do humidity. Okay. Now, this is going to go really fast, and so it'll blink on your screen, and then it'll add another one, add another. So it just keeps adding new lines to it, and it'll eventually overwrite all the screen data. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to slow it down a little bit here. I'm going to put a pause, and I'm going to put a pause for 2 seconds. Right. Then I'm going to go back to my OLED and I'm going to clear it. Otherwise it's going to keep writing information to my screen and I won't be able to read it. Okay. Now again, I've got these commented out blocks over here. I can use them if I want to, but I don't have to. Right. To have it scroll across my microbit. And usually I like using my microbit to show me icons or some indicator that something has happened. Right. So let's download this. Alright, so now let's see on my screen. Alright, so I've got my air temp and I've got my humidity, both of the readings. Alright, perfect. Alright, and notice they're all on the same line. So if you wanted them split, you can do a number of different things. So I could put an insert line right in between, and I can click download. And now they are on separate lines, okay, which is kind of nice. Okay. There's lots of different ways that you can do it. You can play around with how you want it to display on the screen. But I've now got my air temp and humidity. And I think I'm going to put a little equal sign right here. And I'm going to put a little space so there's a little distance between me and the equal sign. Okay. And every time you make a change, you have to download the file again. And now I've got air temp equals 82, humidity equals 59. And notice it's flashing back and forth. And I can keep adding more data to my screen. Alright, and so that's how we get our air temperature on the screen. Now we're going to actually add an LED strip to this guy and use that LED strip to interpret my data.